Begin again.
Welcome, I am Cephalon. Your recollection of past events is fractured. Throughout this memory segment correction, I will be your guide. I will recap all main events for your convenience. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. Before the Tenno assumes control of his Warframes, the Origin solar system was home to the Orokin Empire, a highly advanced version of humankind. This empire was structured into strict castes, with the gilded Orokin as the ruling aristocracy, morally corrupt and revered almost as gods. Beneath them were humans who served as scientists and scholars, alongside the early Grineer, crudely cloned slaves designed for labor and later military purposes. Additionally, the Dax made up the elite soldiers, genetically engineered for absolute obedience to their Orokin masters. Ordinary humans were largely looked down upon, bearing little resemblance to the Orokin in mind or appearance. The Orokin, described as angelic and incomprehensibly beautiful, had bluish-gray skin and glowing eyes. They were obsessed with eternal life, conducting inhumane experiments on their subordinates to fulfill their ambitions. Despite their moral depravity, the Orokin were unparalleled in intellect, creating monumental tools for terraforming planets and shaping ecosystems. They established habitable environments on frozen tundra and gas giants, showcasing their unmatched technological prowess. Governance within the Orokin Empire was carried out by unseen emperors who ruled through executors. And even though sparse in information, it is known that there was a multitude of different ruling bodies making up the governance of the Orokin below the emperors. While the Orokin lived in opulence, most humans endured harsh conditions, relegated to mining colonies or fragmented tribes struggling for survival. At the peak of their technological power, the disparity between an Orokin and a human was vast. It was likely a punishable crime for the two classes to intermingle. Like a mirror, there exists a parallel universe brimming with infinite possibilities. Vaguely understood at this time, this void realm subtly infiltrated real space, shaping the Origin system in various ways. Occasional phenomena like space storms and interference hinted at its presence, but its elusive nature limited deeper exploration until much later. However, the energies of this realm were eventually harnessed into refined kuva, the substance that enabled the consciousness transfer known as the continuity. To achieve immortality, the Orokin utilized this kuva, a red mist-like substance, to cheat death. This process may have been responsible for their unique skin tones, cementing their image as otherworldly beings. Only the most visually attractive individuals, known as the Yuvan, were selected as hosts for these ceremonies, which took place in locations closely connected to void activity. During the ritual, an Orokin would consume kuva and transfer their consciousness into the new host body of the Yuvan, effectively overwriting the original mind. It is believed that raw kuva might be a natural byproduct of void-related activity. In addition to their genetic experimentation, the Orokin engineered the Cephalons, intangible constructs of pure data without any physical form. Many of these entities originated from a grim punishment known as glassing, inflicted upon individuals deemed criminals or otherwise deserving of severe punishment. This harrowing process transformed the victim's body into molten crystal glass, inflicting excruciating pain while digitizing and sometimes altering their mind. The Cephalons inhabit the Weave, a shared and intangible network that connects them. They now perform a variety of functions, such as aiding in ship navigation or managing data. Bound by their precepts, an unwavering set of directives or absolute code, they are incapable of defying their assigned tasks. Though not true artificial intelligence as they were forbidden, They exhibit remarkable capabilities, yet many remain burdened by the emotional scars and traumas of their former human existence. The life of an ordinary worker under the Orokin regime was difficult and without remorse. Among them was Parvos Granum, a humble farmer's son who grew increasingly enraged by the glaring disparity in wealth and labor within the empire. Determined to challenge this inequality, Parvos envisioned a guild where everyone could achieve success through hard work and discipline. He defied the Orokin by stealing vast financial resources and used them to kickstart his revolutionary journey. Parvos began by loaning portions of his acquired wealth, spreading his philosophy and promising influence to those willing to listen. Gradually, he amassed a loyal following of individuals who embraced his beliefs, inspired by his pledge to fulfill their deepest desires. As his movement gained momentum, Parvos accumulated unimaginable wealth and influence, ultimately establishing the city of Corposium, which provided the Corpus with their name. What initially seemed like a prosperous collaboration between the Orokin and Parvos Granum was never meant to last. His unorthodox methods and scientific rivalry with the Orokin Entrati family eroded their trust and respect. Most notably, he stole some of their secret technologies to perfect his Spectre particle, a breakthrough that soon allowed him to create duplicates of any suitable being. These Spectre particles could imprint behavior akin to Cephalon precepts, mimicking everything except the very essence of a soul. Deployed in combat, they functioned as highly effective drones. This act of defiance pushed the Orokin to send an assault team against him. However, Parvos's ability to anticipate and strategize made it nearly impossible for his enemies to catch him off guard. He rigged his research lab with explosives, ensuring that when the assault team arrived, they met their demise. Meanwhile, he had already secured his research, preserving the secrets of Spectre technology before vanishing. As the demands of their society soon outstripped the resources available in the Origin system, the Orokin devised a plan to colonize the neighboring Tau system. However, the vast distance presented a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. Albrecht Entrati, one of the Orokin's foremost scientists, turned his attention to the Void, which he believed could revolutionize technology and make faster-than-light travel possible. His groundbreaking research eventually led him to open a seam in reality, granting him access to this mysterious dimension. Through this gateway, Entrati encountered an eldritch being, as curious about him as he was about the Void itself. The towering creature communicated in an incomprehensible manner, and despite Entrati's extensive safety measures, the Void inflicted near-lethal effects on him. Just as the entity reached for him, Entrati's daughter intervened, pulling him out and severing one of the being's enormous fingers by closing the opening. The Void-induced injuries and unsettling knowledge he acquired left Entrati on the brink of death, but his family and dedicated assistant, Lloyd, nursed him back to health. Years later, Entrati resumed his relentless exploration of the Void. The severed finger proved to be a vital discovery, unlocking key insights into this parallel universe. Deciphering fragments of the entity's speech into the Requiem words and the Void's unique properties, Entrati constructed remarkable machines capable of securely harnessing its energy. One of these was a giant heart, still operational today, that supplies Void energy to various devices. The finger also played a crucial role in the creation of the reliquary drive, which was multiplied to great numbers through cloning. This innovative yet dangerous engine enabled Void jumps, an essential technology for the Orokin's ambitious plans. As their understanding of the Void deepened, they discovered its ability to manifest thoughts and emotions, twisting the very fabric of reality and posing significant risks to unfocused minds. To fight these dangers, the Orokin designed numerous countermeasures and advanced safeguards, like specialized shielding and wards to repel the ghost-like manifestations, though extensive trials for those safeguards were cut short. Underestimating the Void's dangers, the executors rushed for a large-scale application. The Zariman 10-0 became the first ship of its scale, embodying the Orokin's aspirations for colonizing the Tau system, despite the inherent risks of Void travel. To make the Tau system habitable, the Orokin engineered highly advanced terraformers known as the Sentients. These constructs were remarkable for their ability to replicate, adapt to physical harm, and learn from their experiences. However, as they were still considered mere drones, fears arose regarding their potential to grow too numerous and powerful over time. To mitigate this threat, the Orokin introduced a critical flaw in the Sentient's design, a vulnerability to void energy. This weakness would, over time, strip them of their ability to replicate and, with prolonged exposure, prove lethal. The Orokin's plan was to deploy the Sentients to terraform the Tau system and simultaneously, while traveling, construct a series of solar rails, space stations, which propel ships over vast distances. They are more reliable and direct than the risky long-distance void jumps facilitated by the reliquary drive. These solar rails, powered by void energy to enable faster-than-light travel, were expected to poison the Sentients during their construction. By the time the project was completed, the Sentients would have succumbed to the effects of void exposure, effectively working themselves to death. However, the longer the Sentients functioned, the more intelligent they became, eventually achieving full consciousness and developing emotional depth. As they neared the Tau system, they discovered the flaw engineered by their creators. The void poisoning gradually robbed them of their ability to replicate, leaving them devastated and hostile, mourning their inability to create offspring. Consumed by grief and anger, the Sentients abandoned their mission, halting the construction of the final solar rails. Instead, they terraformed Tau to suit their own design, turning it into their new home. Fearing the inevitable arrival of the Orokin, who would surely exploit and deplete Tau as they would the Origin system, the Sentients resolved to launch a preemptive strike. Though limited in number, they assembled a formidable fleet and set out for the Origin system to eliminate their creators to prevent further harm. Navigating autonomously due to the vast distance, the fleet operated beyond the Orokin's supervision, leaving the Empire entirely unaware of the impending rebellion. The number of passengers aboard the Zariman remains uncertain, but with limited time for preparation, Albrecht's daughter Eularia took responsibility for educating the children. Using Melika, the ship's Cephalon, she created a school-like environment to teach them about the Void's dangers and its impact on time. A key focus of her lessons was eternalism, a concept crucial to understanding the Void. Eternalism asserts that time within the Void is neither linear nor confined to a single reality. Past, present, and future are all theoretically accessible, alongside countless versions of the same entity. This paradox encapsulates the essence of the Void, an infinite sum of multiverses, embodying boundless potential and contradiction. It exists as pure, latent possibility. During one such lesson, the Zariman attempted a routine void jump, likely heading toward the first solar rail leading to Tau. The jump, however, failed catastrophically. The ship became stranded inside the void tunnel. Its defenses crumbled, leaving it fully exposed to the Void's energies and manifestations. Corruption gradually took hold of the Zariman, forcing the children to barricade themselves, hiding from the adults who were transforming into monstrous entities. Survival became the sole focus of life aboard the vessel. Amidst this chaos, a group of children attending Eularia's class experienced an extraordinary event. The same entity encountered by Albrecht within the Void made its presence known to one of the children. Adopting the guise of one of them, this incomprehensible figure, referred to as the Man in the Wall, offered a deal. He granted the children powers to survive the Void in exchange for something not yet fully understood, speculated to be a desire for access to real space, or the assimilation of real space into the Void itself. The children, now known as the Tenno, named after the 10-0 designation of the Zariman, gained extraordinary abilities and a unique connection to the Void in the form of Oro. Oro is believed to be an intrinsic element of an individual's existence, akin to the soul or consciousness anchored to the Void. This connection renders the Tenno effectively immortal, as the Void would resurrect and reconstruct them, akin to retracing a memory. However, Oro can be absorbed or destroyed by another being possessing it, which would end their permanence in the Void. The deal struck with the Man in the Wall, also known as the Indifference, warped the children's bodies and minds, transforming them into an uncontrollable force of destruction beyond any known constraints. Despite their fragile mental state and rudimentary understanding, wielding energy beams powerful enough to vaporize anything in their path and reshaping their own physical form became as effortless as flexing a muscle. The battle for survival aboard the Zariman was unimaginably brutal. Many of the children bore deep mental scars, yet the ordeal forged their resolve, strengthening their will to defy the void-spawned creatures that manifested like demons from their very conscience and deepest fears. After an unknown amount of time, the Zariman re-emerged from the void, and the surviving Tenno were rescued from the ship. Among them was Rel, an outsider shunned by the group due to his struggles with Asperger syndrome, which made interaction with others extremely difficult. Left to fend for himself, cast out by human Archimedean Margulis after he blinded her accidentally with his powers, Rel endured isolation while the Tenno were studied by scientists who sought to understand their capabilities. The Orokin, however, soon grew fearful of the Tenno as they discovered they could neither control nor kill them. Amid this turmoil, Margulis offered compassion and care to the traumatized children. To help them focus their minds and train their abilities, she developed the somatic link, a system that placed them in a lucid dream state. This transference system was not exclusive to the Tenno, however. Normal humans could use it, though it came with extreme risks for those without inherent void powers. Ordinary humans often suffered catastrophic mental collapse or became permanently linked to the target vessel, as seen with Sylvana assisting Archimedean to Margulis, who later used transference on the very nature on Earth, trying to will its growth back from total pollution, though now eternally stuck in Earth's flora. While immersed in these lucid dreams through transference, the Tenno found temporary relief from their brutal memories of the Zariman and their volatile powers. They gradually learned to manifest their consciousness, enabling ghost-like interactions with the physical world using void energy. During this time, the sentients returned to the origin system, surpassing all expectations of adaptation. Their advanced technology proved overwhelming, allowing them to overpower Orokin machinery and even commandeer it. A pivotal discovery by a Grineer, later used as the gene template for cloning, revealed that simple weaponry, devoid of sophisticated smart technology, was essential to mount any kind of resistance. Nonetheless, the sentients' relentless adaptation remained a significant hurdle. In response, the Orokin resorted to mutation-based tactics, employing the Infestation, a collection of viral strains likely originating from the Techrote outbreak of the late 20th century. Although previously eradicated, the Infestation was revived for use in biobombs, which successfully repelled the sentients in key locations such as Deimos. However, these weapons rendered surrounding areas toxic and overrun with Infestation. One of the executors, Ballas, who shared a forbidden romantic relationship with Margulis, experimented with using the Infestation on Dax soldiers to enhance their strength and make them more resistant to damage. This attempt failed, instead turning the subjects into mindless monsters incapable of obedience. However, it was discovered that the Tenno could use somatic pods to link their consciousness to these mutated soldiers, effectively steering them. Margulis was then forced to collaborate with Ballas in developing new weapons for the Tenno. This led to the refinement of the Helminth strain, which created Warframes, stable, self-healing entities imbued with unique powers. Margulis adamantly opposed the Warframe project, refusing to see her children turned into weapons. Ballas pressured her to comply, as defiance against an executor or the Emperors meant certain death. Margulis stood firm in her convictions, choosing death over blind obedience. She was charged with treason, and her execution was carried out by Ballas himself. In her final moments, Margulis denounced the executors and Ballas before her life was ended. Without Margulis to protect them, following her death, the Tenno were eventually linked to Warframes via transference and deployed against the sentients. Their abilities, particularly their void powers, effectively countered the sentients' adaptations, gradually turning the tide of the war. The Helminth strain's versatility extended beyond Warframes, revolutionizing Orokin technology. Its unique blend of self-healing metal and flesh allowed the construction of great buildings, spaceships, and weaponry immune to sentient control over machines. As the war raged on for years, numerous warframes were developed, each specialized for various combat roles, such as assassination or elemental manipulation. Some warframes even evolved during deployment. For example, Revenant, who fused with a powerful sentient mind, gaining new abilities. High-ranking individuals also contributed to warframe designs, such as Parvos Granum collaborating with Ballas to create Protea as his personal bodyguard before their trust dissolved. Even in the present day, new discoveries continue to unveil warframe designs, including Albrecht Entrati's unique creations. While the Tenno valiantly fought against the Sentients, Ballas, who held immense power within the Orokin hierarchy, found himself hollow and unfulfilled, yearning for true love. Racked with guilt and self-loathing over Margulis's death, his love for her twisted into an all-consuming obsession. In his grief and regret, Ballas turned against his masters and conspired with the sentient leader, the formidable Harrow. Together, they devised a cunning plan. Harrow's daughter, Natah, would infiltrate the Orokin to seize control over the Tenno. As a special mimic, Natah possessed the ability to assume any form. She adopted the guise of Margulis, effortlessly deceiving the children and earning their trust as their returned mother. Meanwhile, Harrow feigned death and crash-landed, along with the majority of his troops, in the oceans of Uranus. This staged defeat provided the Orokin with a false sense of victory, prompting the reclusive emperors to emerge and celebrate alongside the Tenno. Seizing the opportunity, Natah struck, assassinating the highest ruling body and orchestrating the near-total annihilation of the Orokin. With the combined might of void powers and warframes, she dismantled their entire empire. The final phase of the plan was to awaken Harrow and eliminate the Tenno. As the Sentients evolved, they have developed their own version of Oro, an imperfect replication, but which made them extraordinarily difficult to kill. This unique attribute placed them among the few beings capable of permanently destroying a Tenno. Yet Natah's path diverged. Longing for the ability to bear children and influenced by Margulis's persona, she found herself unable to harm the Tenno. It is also faintly assumed that Ballas subtly manipulated her, swaying her allegiance against her fellow sentients. This pivotal decision would bring immense consequences. Renaming herself the Lotus after Margulis' favorite flower, Natah chose to protect the Tenno and led them in battle against her own kind. Even her brother, Era, confronted her in an emotional plea for her return to her true form. After a grueling conflict that saw the Tenno repel most of the sentient threat, the Lotus sought a way to safeguard the children. She placed them in the reservoir, a vast collection of somatic pods hidden on Lua, Earth's moon. To shield them during their slumber, she employed advanced technology to teleport the moon into the void, concealing it from harm. The warframes were scattered across the system, their locations hidden. While not all Tenno went into stasis, some remained awake, continuing to fight and hunt down emerging threats. Ballas went into hiding, and Harrow lay dormant, buried beneath the oceans of Uranus, awaiting reawakening. Meanwhile, the remnants of the Dax, Orokin, and Grineer factions disbanded, rebuilding their own societies and resettling throughout the system. The Corpus survived the war, but their leader, Parvos Granum, met a tragic fate. Betrayed by the Corpus board of directors who were envious of his power, Granum's void drive was sabotaged by assassins, leaving him lost to the void. Elsewhere, the biobombs and failed mutated Dax roamed as zombie-like ghouls, spreading the infestation left to slowly evolve, lurking in some hidden corner of space, but most notably turning the entirety of Deimos into an infested wasteland. Referred to today as the Old War, this conflict marked the downfall of the Orokin Empire and a chance for a new beginning for the few survivors. As the war raged over countless years, the exact number of warframes created remains uncertain. Untold numbers of weapons, machines, and even entire space stations remain scattered and untouched across the system, though it is only a matter of time before these relics too are unearthed and their secrets revealed. Millennia after the conclusion of the Old War, the Tenno, Sentient, and Orokin have faded into myth, their legacy preserved only in scattered fragments throughout the planets. The solar system has transformed into a landscape unrecognizable from its past. Dominating this new order are the Grineer, a militaristic and expansionist faction. They are governed by the twin queens, surviving Orokin, who wield Kuva to transfer their consciousness between clone bodies, guiding the Grineer to their current position of power. However, today's Grineer are in every aspect notably weaker than their pre-war ancestors. Having lost the original template during or after the war, they were forced to depend on flawed and already cloned genes, which ultimately resulted in the widespread cloning decay syndrome plaguing the faction. This condition renders them sterile, with lifespans limited to mere decades and intelligence varying wildly among individuals. To counter these flaws, the Grineer augment themselves with cybernetics and make use of heavy armor. Their technology, though rudimentary and crude, is designed for efficiency and mass production. What they lack in innovation, they compensate for with overwhelming numbers, making them a relentless force in the solar system. Repeated efforts are made to undo the cloning decay syndrome by their best scientists, and for mostly that reason, they salvage old Orokin tech and raid settlements of humans and Corpus system-wide in hopes of finding a solution to their problem. Their unwavering devotion and near-mechanical mindset render them nearly unbeatable in combat. The Grineer are organized into a strict hierarchy with numerous military-style ranks, featuring specialized units adapted to various terrains, such as the Arid Core for Mars's deserts and the Frontier Core for Earth's dense jungles. Among their rivals, only the technologically advanced Corpus pose a comparable threat. The faction is currently ruled by its board of directors. Despite their opposition, the Grineer rely on the Corpus for trade and access to the solar rails, which are crucial for system-wide navigation and are currently solely controlled by the Corpus. However, tensions frequently escalate into unavoidable conflicts, as both factions fight for territory and remnants of Orokin technology. The Corpus, established by Parvos Granum during the peak of the Orokin era, are now driven by an intense fixation on material wealth and the exploitation of the Void's potential. After Parvos disappeared, their pursuit of true desires shifted into a near-religious devotion to profit. This obsession transformed the Corpus into a salvaging merchant guild governed by a coalition of investors, financiers, and plutocrats. Leveraging their technological expertise, they created an extensive network of robots and machinery for labor. Renowned for their energy-based weaponry, advanced shields, and teleportation technology, the Corpus excel at adapting Orokin tech and harnessing the Void's unique capabilities. Unlike the Grineer, the Corpus are plagued by constant internal conflicts among competing guilds and divisions. Operating more like distinct companies, each guild focuses on specific objectives. For example, the B-Cloud Hivemind specializes in development of artificial intelligence, while the Luxor Nanocomposites Foundry Forge produces weaponry and construction materials. Just like the Grineer, the Corpus have control over multiple planets in the Origin system and space stations throughout. While the Corpus and Grineer dominate the struggle for control over the system and its resources, smaller settlements of peaceful, non-militant individuals still exist. Various syndicates fight for their own goals, such as Suda, a Cephalon who chose digitization to preserve her mind and pursue knowledge, and the Red Veil, a faction of assassins dedicated to purging the system's corruption through flames. Additionally, defectors from both the Corpus and Grineer have allied with humans and now reside within massive space stations known as the Relays. These stations serve as sanctuaries, safeguarding merchants and settlers while striving to create safe havens beyond the reach of the major factions. But even old foes still roam the battlefield. The Eidolon, a massive broken sentient, waking every night for millennia to search for means to heal its broken body across the plains on Earth. Or the Stalker, a warframe with an unknown host, presumed to be a human permanently linked to it. Some neutral groups have settled on different planets, such as the Ostron on Earth, who are protected by the mysterious Unum. Linked to an Orokin tower, the Unum is speculated to be a Tenno who never entered the somatic pod on Lua. Since the Old War, she has overseen and protected the Ostron village, sustaining them with the regenerating flesh of the tower. Although rare, signs of infestation have surfaced, with scattered sightings and evidence suggesting its presence. Small groups of individuals continue to disappear while venturing into abandoned stations on salvage missions. However, due to the limited scale of these incidents, no further investigations have been carried out. As the Orokin queens watched their empire collapse at the hands of the Lotus and the Tenno, they retained a deeper understanding of this world than most. As rulers of the Grineer, their immense influence and power enabled them to dispatch Captain Vor to scour the planets in search of any remaining Warframes, with orders to destroy them. Captain Vor, with his deep understanding of Orokin technology, stands out as one of the few capable of adapting it for his purposes. Armed with the Seer, a pistol combining Orokin and Grineer design, and an Orokin Void Key, he journeys through the system, eliminating Warframes still lying dormant in cryochambers. Though the Lotus, still hidden, monitors the Grineer closely, Vor's relentless efficiency keeps him a step ahead. He destroys numerous Warframes before the Lotus can awaken them. After ordering his subordinates to raise an Ostron outpost on Earth, Vor discovers another dormant Warframe within an ancient Orokin tower. This time, defying protocol, he adopts a new approach. Hoping to gain deeper insight into his enemies and to harness Warframe powers for the Grineer, he refrains from destroying it. Instead, he intends to use his prototype device to corrupt the Warframe, gradually bending it to his will. This delay provides the Lotus with the time needed to awaken the Tenno within the Warframe. However, the Tenno emerges stripped of memories and abilities, struggling to comprehend the unfolding chaos. Unbeknownst to the Tenno, he is not physically present within the Warframe, but is instead controlling it remotely through the somatic pod. Without the means to sever the link on his own or to communicate, he's fully reliant on the Lotus guidance as he is confronted by this harsh new reality. Vor, determined to maintain control, uses his prototype device, the Ascaris tracker, on the newly awakened Warframe. He orders his soldiers to secure it and returns to his ship. With the Lotus's help, the Warframe fends off the Grineer squad, aided by a power surge she provides. Slowly regaining some of its former abilities and guided by the Lotus, the Tenno recovers old weapons and moves toward an escape ship. But as the Tenno approaches the landing site, Vor arrives and destroys the ship using his Void Key. Following a tense battle, Vor retreats and the Lotus locates the Tenno's orbiter, a spaceship equipped with Cephalon Ordis. To their mutual surprise, Ordis recognizes the Tenno as his operator. Together, they flee into space, recollecting for the battle ahead. After escaping into space, the Tenno discovers that most of the machinery and equipment aboard the orbiter have been stripped. To stand a chance against threats like Captain Vor, the Tenno must adapt, rebuild the ship's capabilities, and enhance their combat readiness. The Lotus explains that other Tenno remain scattered across the system, but only through the restoration of a communication link can they unite if needed. Locating the link on Earth, the Tenno recovers the missing components needed to restore the ship. Seeking to increase their firepower, the Tenno rescues Darvo, a Corpus black market arms dealer and son of a prominent Corpus board member, Frode Beck, imprisoned by the Grineer. With Darvo's assistance, they unlock the foundry, enabling the crafting of essential gear. After embarking on several missions to raid Grineer installations, the Tenno gradually builds a formidable arsenal. Meanwhile, Captain Vor begins gaining control of the Warframe, establishing a direct transmission link and manipulating its shields. The Lotus discovers schematics for an Ascaris Negator, a device capable of disabling Vor's Ascaris control mechanism. However, Vor's device is equipped with a failsafe that triggers a deadly detonation if tampered with. Determined to free themselves, the Tenno tracks Captain Vor to a mining asteroid for a final confrontation. In a fierce battle, the Tenno employs their entire arsenal to overcome Vor, ultimately disarming the Ascaris device and breaking free from Vor's control. Though liberated, the Tenno's and Lotus actions have drawn the attention of both major factions, who now view them as a significant threat as they proved strong enough to best a powerful enemy like Vor. The Lotus initiates her plans to employ the Tenno to bring back balance to the system. While the Tenno embarks on numerous missions under Lotus's supervision, a distress call leads them to Cetus, an Ostron village in the plains of Eidolon. This settlement, where the mysterious Unum selects a handful of Ostrons to drink her essence, known as Temple Kuva, initiating them into the secretive order called the Quills. These chosen individuals gain extraordinary abilities, such as glimpsing through the void to foresee potential futures or sense imminent dangers. Most importantly, they become the Unum's eyes, enabling her to act beyond the confines of her tower through her followers. The Tenno is summoned by Konzu, the village leader, whose friend Saya is distraught. The Grineer have seemingly found traces of her long-lost husband, Onko. It is revealed that Konzu, through his association with the Quills, bears partial responsibility for Onko's disappearance. It's the reason why he pleads to the Tenno to help them out. Meanwhile, the Grineer have begun a large-scale drilling operation in a collapsed cave on the plains, led by Vei Hek, a fanatical yet powerful Grineer counselor. Vei Hek is obsessed with discovering a method to defeat the Eidolons, roaming the plains every night in search of restoration for their fractured bodies. Still wandering since the Old War, these Eidolon pose a grave threat to everything in their path. Only the Unum, with assistance from some Tenno, has managed to hold them off after the Old War concluded. At the drilling site, the Tenno dismantles the Grineer's machinery and uncovers a small coffer that belonged to Onko. Moved by Saya's plea, the Tenno sets out to recover shards of glass scattered across the system, which serve as the key to unlock the coffer. This journey spans numerous outposts and even Grineer galleons in outer orbit. The final shard is found amid a chaotic battle between a Grineer battalion and a powerful Eidolon. Forced to retreat into a nearby cave, the Tenno secures the last piece. Back aboard the orbiter, the coffer is unlocked, revealing an iron flower, the same flower Konzu had given to Saya as a token of his love long ago. Onko had used this flower to symbolize that Saya was meant to be with Konzu, acknowledging his inability to stay due to his obligations with the Quills. Touched by this, Saya accepts Konzu's love, as Onko had been absent for years, and she had grown close to Konzu in that time. From the shadows, Onko continues to watch over both Saya and Cetus, safeguarding them in his own way while functioning as a protector of the village. In the end, Vei Hek's plans are foiled, and although the Eidolons remain a formidable presence, their existence prevents the Grineer from fully dominating the region. The Ostrons are safe for now, but Vei Hek's relentless pursuit of control over the plains and the Orokin relics, safeguarded by the Unum, persists, leaving the battle far from over. After some time, the Tenno receives a transmission from Venus, drawing them to Fortuna, a debt internment colony buried deep underground. Situated in the Orb Valleys, Fortuna exists within a pocket of supercooled atmosphere surrounded by searing heat storms. Pre-war Orokin terraformers have made this region habitable, and the inhabitants, known as the Solaris, tirelessly maintain the coolant towers that stabilize the environment. Underneath this fragile balance of life lies a harsh reality. Nef Anio, a ruthless Corpus plutocrat, rules Fortuna with brutal efficiency. Most Solaris workers have purchased cybernetic upgrades to enhance their productivity, replacing their limbs with crude but powerful machinery and their heads with specialized sensors. Failure to meet Nef's arbitrary production quotas invites a horrific punishment. Repossession squads forcibly replace more body parts, escalating the workers' debt exponentially. Their labor consists of mining rare minerals and constructing off-world machinery. Yudico, the floor boss of Fortuna, reaches out to the Tenno for assistance with Thursby, a young Solaris worker burdened by the inherited debt of his parents. Thursby's desperate plan to steal Corpus equipment and sell it for profit quickly goes bad. Yudico interrupts him, warning that the operation has been monitored. Moments later, Nef Anio contacts them with chilling news. He knows of the theft and declares that Thursby will be repossessed as punishment. The Tenno arrives too late to stop the repossession. Thursby is left barely clinging to life, stripped of most of his body. Later, Nef Anio seeks to impress his investors by prematurely activating a new coolant tower. The experiment ends disastrously, and Nef shifts blame to the Solaris workers, demanding that 50 of them be repossessed as reparations. To enforce his demands, he deploys the Profit-Taker Orb, an enormous spider-like machine of Corpus design mixed with sentient adaptive shielding, tech which they harvested from old war wrecks. With no other options, Yudico entrusts the Tenno with the critical mission to destroy the malfunctioning coolant tower. The destruction of the tower pushes Nef to a breaking point. Faced with no viable solution, he is confronted by Yudico's secret identity, the Vox Solaris. In a bold negotiation, Vox Solaris threatens to shut down all production and labor in the Orb Valleys, unless the repossession of workers ceases and the Solaris are granted contracts to work as free people. Cornered and enraged, Nef has no choice but to concede, leaving his investors furious. In the aftermath, the Solaris workers are finally liberated, protected from Nef's tyranny and inspired with renewed hope. Even though working exhaustive and tiring jobs, they won't have to fear any repossessions, as Nef is now aware of the Solaris control and influence over this installation. The Lotus intercepts communications from Dr. Tengus, a Grineer scientist who has developed a mysterious bioweapon. She tasks the Tenno with investigating, sending them to Mercury on a spy mission on an asteroid base. During the mission, the Tenno uncovers data revealing that this bioweapon is, in fact, a strain of the Infestation that survived the Old War. As the mission progresses, the Tenno faces resistance from Grineer Marines and discovers that the Infestation has broken free, now rampaging through Grineer outposts and ships on Mercury, turning any fallen unit to their own. Following the trail of destruction left by the outbreak, the Tenno begins eliminating the infested creatures. Recognizing the growing threat, the Lotus deploys the operator with a cascade bomb to clear out the infestation with a large-scale attack. Initially believed to be mindless, the infested display alarming coordination in their attempts to thwart the bomb's deployment. Despite facing relentless waves of enemies, the Tenno successfully arms the bomb, extracts safely, and triggers a void-infused explosion that destroys all living matter at the site while leaving the structure intact. Upon returning to safety, the Lotus intercepts another communication. Dr. Tengus reports to the Grineer Queens, blaming the Tenno for the outbreak. It is assumed that Tengus himself released the infestation through his soldiers in a sick experiment. It is only a matter of time before further confrontations with the infestation arise. From the recently re-emerged Martian moon, Deimos, the operator, receives a distress call from Lloyd, the Cephalon guide to the Entrati family, named after Albrecht's assistant. Upon arrival, it becomes clear that the entire moon has been consumed by the infestation, now functioning as a grotesque, living mass drifting through space, though teeming with life both hostile and friendly. Landing near the signal, Lloyd swiftly guides the Tenno to the Necralisk, a once great Orokin research station. It is here that Albrecht Entrati, the leading Orokin scientist, first made contact with the man in the wall. The station's central void-powered heart, which pumps energy into real space, remains active but is under dire threat. Lloyd introduces the Tenno to the fractured, half-infested descendants of Albrecht Entrati. These remnants of the family, still dwelling on Deimos since the Old War, are almost completely consumed by the infestation. Their plight stems from the actions of the Sun, who, through his experiments on infested wildlife, inadvertently breached containment protocols. This exposure left the family vulnerable, eroding their memories to the point where they have forgotten their own names. Despite their condition, they recognize the escalating danger to the heart and end the concealment of Deimos, similarly to Lua, bringing the moon back from the void. As the Tenno completes various tasks for Oleria, now called Gomaitru, changed through the infestation, Albrecht's daughter and the family's leader, they eventually reach the heart itself. Emerging from the void gate behind the heart is a rogue necromech, an old war machine designed to be void-shielded and impervious to sentient influence, but primitive in intelligence. The necromech attacks the Tenno, partially damaging the heart and rendering the Warframe powerless. Forced to retreat to the Necralisk, Vilcor, Gometru's husband, offers the Tenno his own necromech to confront the rogue machine. With Vilcor's necromech, the Tenno fights through relentless waves of infested, eventually repairing the heart using his Omni-tool. In a final confrontation, the Tenno lures out the rogue necromech and destroys it moments before their own borrowed mech succumbs to damage. With the heart restored, the Tenno entrusts the now united Entrati family to safeguard the heart against future threats from the infestation or other factions. In the aftermath, Gomaitru's mother reveals herself and cryptically implies that she orchestrated the attack on the heart. Her intentions were to unite the fractured family, making them more effective in defending the heart and warding off any looming dangers. After conversing with her, the Tenno is left assured about the heart's protection. The Orokin era saw the invention of the Archwing, a set of mechanical wings designed to enable its wearer to engage in airborne combat and exhibit exceptional mobility in space and atmospheric environments. In preparation for a critical mission, the Lotus tasks the Tenno with sabotaging a Corpus deployment by harnessing their torsion beam device. This device generates a portal into one of the Orokin archive towers, hidden within the void. These towers hold untold treasures and ancient technologies, but their automatic defense systems render them deadly, turning intruders into mindless drones dedicated to safeguarding the very structures they sought to plunder. As the Tenno explores this void archive and various Corpus and Grineer outposts on different planets, they uncover the blueprints necessary to construct the Archwing. Once construction is underway, the Lotus directs the Tenno to investigate suspicious Grineer intel aboard a Corpus freighter. However, before they can act, Councillor Vey Heck intercepts in outer orbit, declaring war on the Corpus. The uneasy alliance between the factions shatters, spiraling into full-scale conflict. The Lotus had specifically tasked the Tenno with investigating the Ballas Fomorian supercarrier, an imposing Grineer warship with capabilities so destructive that it could shift the solar system's balance of power. Alone, the Corpus stands no chance against such a colossal threat. During the confrontation, the Ballas Fomorian obliterates a Corpus vessel within moments, forcing the Tenno to eject into open space. Ordis, despite doubts about the Archwing's readiness, deploys it to provide the Warframe with mobility and life support. The Tenno evades the Fomorian's relentless artillery and lasers, seeking cover among nearby debris and asteroids. Ultimately, retreat proves to be the only viable option, and the Warframe extracts to safety aboard the orbiter. With the Grineer now holding the upper hand and wielding unprecedented power, the Tenno must regroup. Equipped with archwings and suitable weaponry, a team of Tenno will have to redeploy at a later time in an attempt to destroy the Ballas Fomorian and neutralize its threat. Although the Grineer currently dominate the battlefield, the Tenno stand ready to restore balance to the solar system in time. While gaining a stronger foothold and deeper understanding of the workings of both the Corpus and the Grineer, both factions quickly adapt to the rising Tenno influence by utilizing old Orokin and sentient technology. As alliances form within both the relays and various planetary outposts, most syndicates align with the Tenno, though some harbor slight mistrust toward them and the Lotus. United by a common goal, Teshin, an old war Dax soldier and the keeper of the Conclave, where the Tenno train, joins a recon mission initiated by the Lotus to intercept Grineer whispers about cryptic messages. She sends the Tenno to investigate unidentified drones spotted on Uranus. Deep within the secret Grineer Sea Labs, Til Regor, a highly intelligent and ambitious scientist leading research into Grineer gene repair, is making significant strides in curing the cloning decay syndrome that afflicts the entire faction. When the Tenno encounter the mysterious drones, scans initially confuse the Lotus, who assumed they were of Corpus origin. The trail leads off-planet to Earth, where the Corpus are excavating wreckages from the old war. After inspecting the ruins, the Lotus identifies the drones as oculists, sentient reconnaissance units, and abruptly cuts communications. Instead, Teshin takes over and offers his assistance to uncover the truth behind the Lotus's suspicious behavior, but, in doing so, places the Tenno in greater danger. Meanwhile, on Uranus, Til Regor taunts the Tenno and reveals that he has discovered a tomb he intends to explore. Abruptly, the Lotus reappears and confronts Teshin, questioning his motives. Their exchange reveals a palpable mistrust between them, yet it is clear the Lotus is concealing a secret. She pleads with the Tenno to stop Til Regor from opening the tomb, but the scientist successfully breaches it, uncovering powerful sentient technology. At this moment, an unknown voice interrupts, addressing the Lotus directly and calling her Natah, questioning her betrayal. The Lotus confesses her true identity to the Tenno. She is Natah, a sentient mimic who once betrayed her own kind to save the Tenno. She recounts her past actions, including her ultimate decision to abandon her sentient heritage to protect the Tenno. She sends them to trigger an explosion to destroy the Sea-Lab and reseal the tomb. However, despite their efforts, the voice is freed. Harrow, the sentient leader and father to Natah, awakens after his fainted defeat in the Old War. The Tenno retreats, strategizing their next steps to combat this emerging threat. Meanwhile, Teal Rhaegor leverages his groundbreaking discoveries to enhance his research, culminating in the creation of the Tube Men, exceptionally strong and healthy Grineer, equipped with unique abilities. Preventing the large-scale cloning of this advanced unit becomes a critical objective, though the Tenno's capacity to contain the threat remains limited. As for Harrow, his whereabouts are unknown for now, yet his presence poses a grave danger to the entire system. Throughout the system, the Tenno encounter various formidable figures as opponents, such as Captain Vor or Teal Rhaegor, but the Corpus are equally ominous. Among them is Alad V, a member of the Board of Directors and head of Grineer Relations. Alad V specializes in Warframe technology, destroying many Warframes to develop stronger weapons. His latest creation, the Zanuka, is a canine-like robot crafted from Warframe parts, boasting remarkable agility and even Warframe-like abilities. Following the opening of the tomb by Teal Rhaegor, sentients begin appearing across the system. Though initially in small numbers, they prove far more dangerous than the Tenno's known adversaries. Recognizing the threat posed by Harrow and the growing sentient forces, factions form unlikely alliances to counter the danger. Alad V, true to his self-serving nature, aids the Lotus in locating traces of Harrow to eliminate the threat. Together, they discover a sentient relic on Uranus, hoping it will provide insights into Harrow's plans. However, Harrow deceives them, using the relic to infiltrate the Lotus's mind and to uncover the location of the reservoir still hidden in the Void. Unable to survive the Void's toxicity, Harrow enlists the Stalker as his agent, equipping him with special sentient armor and the greatsword named War to annihilate the Tenno. Driven by resentment for the Tenno's role in the Orokin's downfall, the Stalker hunts them relentlessly, destroying countless Warframes. On Lua, he disables the shielding that regulates the Void's pressure on the moon, prompting the Lotus to send the Tenno to phase Lua back into real space to prevent a collapse. As Lua re-enters the solar system, the sentients launch attacks, forcing the Tenno to defend the reservoir. At the reservoir, the truth is revealed. The Tenno's true form, the Operator, who uses void energy and transference to control Warframes, has remained hidden within the somatic pods since the moon's concealment. Since entering the long dream inside the reservoir, the Tenno has been without a voice, as he lacked any memory of his true being. Now finally free, he is encountered with a strange new world like a mere child thrust into battle. Upon encountering the Operator, the Stalker hesitates, reflecting on his actions and retreating, leaving the Operator to confront sentient fighters. Despite their weakened state, the Operator reactivates their Warframe by touch and channels void energy, swiftly defeating the sentients before escaping to the Orbiter. On board the Orbiter, the Lotus instructs the Operator to activate a transference vessel to regain full control of their Warframes. The Stalker infiltrates the ship, intent on stopping them. In a climactic battle, the Operator manages to activate the vessel, leading to a blast of energy separating him from his Warframe in the process. The Stalker stabs the lifeless Warframe and attempts to choke the Operator, but the Warframe revitalizes unexpectedly, breaking the greatsword in half and severing Harrow's control. Overcome with pain, the Stalker flees, releasing a blinding flash that renders the Operator unconscious. The Lotus appears, carrying the Operator to the somatic link to stabilize them. She helps the Operator recover memories of their past, including how Margulis saved them by creating a dream state, and how her ideas led to transference. The Lotus recounts the Tenno's history and their founding of 5 great combat schools, allowing the Operator to follow their ancient teachings and refine their powers into new abilities. While the sentient forces are now uncontainable, the Tenno has reawakened from this dream state, regaining powerful abilities for the upcoming fight in the process. Harrow's attack was merely the beginning. A disturbance on Lua draws the Tenno back to the reservoir, where they find Teshin inspecting a somatic pod and uncover traces of Kuva. Teshin warns the Tenno to stay away, but undeterred, they follow him alongside Lotus supervision. Their pursuit reveals Teshin's secret allegiance to the Grineer queens. Tracking his specters leads them to the Kuva fortress, a mobile, hidden stronghold concealed within an asteroid field. Deep within its confines, the Tenno confront the queens, who plan to exploit the Tenno for continuity, intending to overwrite the operator's mind with their own. Teshin, as a Dax, is genetically programmed to obey anyone wielding the Orokin blood. The queens, using the Kuva scepter, force Teshin to ensnare the Warframe, after which she starts to burrow into the Tenno's mind. Falling unconscious, the Tenno experiences a vision of a snowy mountain pass. Guided by Teshin, he rediscovers his ancient void abilities, learning to harness these powers without his Warframe. Along the way, he recalls fragments of life aboard the Zariman, including cherished memories of his family, reigniting his determination. Awakening from the vision stronger and more resolute, the Tenno overcomes the Queen's guards, fends off Teshin, and seizes the Kuva scepter. With their control over Teshin shattered, he kills the elder queen while the younger queen escapes. The operator gains the ability to channel transference independently, no longer reliant on the orbiter's vessel. However, furious for her sister's death, the surviving queen escalates her efforts, initiating a large-scale Kuva operation to enhance select Grineer, transforming them into the most formidable soldiers yet. As the sentient forces rise, even distant regions of space like the Veil Proxima fall under their influence. Once a conflict zone between the Corpus and Grineer, the area is now dominated by newly discovered sentient vessels called Murex, massive carrier ships. The unparalleled technology and strength of the sentient forces demand deeper understanding, requiring insights from someone who has battled them before. To meet this need, the Tenno reconstructs Cephalon Psi, an Orokin-era Cephalon who fought them once before. Tasked with spearheading the mission to push back the enemy fleet, Psi relives traumatic flashbacks of his original crew, who perished during the Old War while attempting to decimate the sentient mothership. Despite his loss, Psi recognizes that no one else possesses the expertise or experience to lead the Tenno in their fight against the ancient enemy. With the Railjack, a long-lost Orokin warship, rebuilt through relentless searches across the Origin system, the Tenno prepares himself for the escalating sentient threat in the Veil Proxima. Yudiko contacts the operator with a plea to help her prevent a disaster. Nef Anio called for the Deadlock Protocol, a contingency initiative meant to solve a permanent voting impasse between the board members. A new leader for the Corpus has to be chosen. Determined to establish himself as the rightful heir, Nef Anio embarks on a quest to uncover genetic proof of his lineage, seeking remains of the Corpus founder, Parvos Granum. If he can verify his ancestry, he will gain control over the board. His search leads him to the Granum Void, where he follows traces of Parvos's personal bodyguard, Protea. To peer into this void realm, he sacrifices Solaris workers, using them as unwilling conduits. The Tenno follows one such worker and makes a startling discovery. Parvos Granum has survived since the Orokin era, thanks to Protea's sacrifice. She traded her own life to lock Parvos away in the timeless void bubble. However, Parvos had orchestrated a deeper plan. He had lured the Tenno into the void so that Protea could scan their warframes, restoring herself as a spectre to fight for him once more. Seeing the growing threat, Nef Anio reluctantly allies himself with the Tenno. He provides them with ciphers to access Corpus files on Parvos, allowing them to hack into the databases and construct the Zoris, an invention of Parvos, intricately tied to Spectre technology. Armed with this weapon, the Tenno returns to the Granum Void, liberates the captive Solaris workers, and vanquishes the Protea Spectre in a fierce fight, while she effortlessly manipulates time as a weapon. Despite their efforts, Parvos successfully escapes into reality. He unveils his vision to reshape the Corpus faction now functioning at its helm once more, citing an impending threat from Tau as justification. In a final twist, he extends an offer to the Tenno, inviting them to a seat at his bargaining table, where the fate of the future hangs in balance. Parvos Granum is a brilliant strategist, highly proficient in technology and relentlessly ambitious. He envisions the creation of an elite force, hand-picked soldiers equipped with the most advanced weaponry and armor. These warriors, known as the Sisters of Parvos, rival the formidable Grineer elite units in strength. As his enforcers, they execute his will with unwavering loyalty, ensuring his vision for the Corpus is carried out with precision and dominance. After receiving a cryptic transmission from an abandoned Steel Meridian ship, a syndicate of Grineer defectors, the Tenno discovers the crew brutally murdered and ominous messages written in blood. Amid the carnage, they encounter Palladino, the speaker of the Red Veil Syndicate. The Tenno has to defend her against Red Veil fanatics intent to assassinate her. Palladino reveals that Rel, the outcast Tenno, has abandoned the Red Veil Temple, causing turmoil within the Syndicate. Unlike other Tenno, Rel did not enter cryosleep after the Old War. Cast out by Margulis for accidentally blinding her with his powers, he instead dedicated his life to a solitary mission, protecting the realm from the Indifference. To achieve this, Rel bound his spirit to his warframe, Harrow, transforming it into a ward that prevented the man in the wall from solidifying his connection to real space. However, standing vigilant for millennia shattered Rel's mind and eroded his humanity, leaving him a spectral being of his former self. To safeguard Palladino, the Tenno escorts her to Iron Wake, the Steel Meridian base, where she is placed under their protection. Palladino then tasks the Tenno with recovering a sacred relic to establish contact with Rel, who is now plagued by episodes of madness and struggles to retain his humanity after losing control of transference under relentless attacks from the man in the wall. The Tenno captures Rel's manifestations of emotion, disturbances formed of transference energy, and delivers them to the Red Veil Temple in an Orokin derelict hidden in the void. There they find Harrow bound in chains, but are soon confronted by Red Veil fanatics intent on stopping them. After fending off the attackers, the Tenno destroys the chains, destroying Rel's warframe and in turn freeing Rel's spirit. Rel appears in his true form, unburdened at last, and Palladino urges him to embrace peace. She entrusts the Tenno with the immense responsibility of guarding against the man in the wall, a task Rel had carried alone for countless centuries. With Rel's release, the Tenno now faces the daunting consequences of confronting the Void's indifference and its lurking threat. Back on the Orbiter, the Void entity masks itself as the Tennos doppelganger, taunting him with its presence, ever so slightly reminding him of its looming threat. After restoring their Orbiter's personal quarters, the Tenno encounters a mysterious purple orb that transmits him to Lua. Within the transmission, the Tenno hears echoes of a past conversation between Margulis and Ballas. Following a trail of light, they arrive at a vast chamber that appears to be the Lotus's base of operations, where she directly guides the Tenno. Although the Lotus appears before them, the Tenno finds themselves unable to communicate with her. Shortly after, Ballas suddenly emerges from hiding, declaring his eternal devotion to the Lotus and insisting she is the true Margulis. Using his abilities, Ballas severs the Lotus's connection to the Tenno and takes her to an unknown location. Left behind is her helmet, which the Tenno retrieves and brings back to their Orbiter. With the connection to the Lotus lost, Ordis begins a relentless search for her, but her whereabouts remain untraceable, hidden wherever Ballas has taken her. One day, the Tenno hears the faint voice of the Lotus. Drawn by the sound, he touches her helmet, triggering a vision, an extraordinary warframe displaying clear signs of emotion, acting independently without a host. Before the warframe can attack, it is mercilessly destroyed by Ballas and his sentient drones. Determined to uncover the truth, the Tenno follows the remnants back to Earth. Upon landing, the operator is ambushed by Grineer ghouls, twisted, toxic monstrosities created by Vey Heck. Hastily bred and left unfinished, they lack fear, but exhibit relentless aggression. After a brutal battle, the Tenno passes through an Orokin gate, stepping into a ruined courtyard where fragments of the Warframe lay scattered. They synthesize the fragments for reconstruction. Back on the orbiter, Ordis meticulously analyzes the data. Among the remains, traces of minerals embedded in a sword lead to Lua. Hidden within the fragments, he also extracts an incomplete blueprint for Excalibur Umbra. With a new destination set, the Tenno embarks on a journey to Lua, searching for the missing components. There, buried deep within the lunar ruins, the Tenno uncovers Ballas's hidden chamber. In it, a Vitruvian device, encrypted and full with secrets. The recordings within reveal Ballas's betrayal during the Old War, the moment he turned against his kind in grief over Margulis' death. The data contains knowledge of the Warframe's weaknesses and the very mechanisms that could destroy them. Ignoring Ordis's warnings, the Tenno uploads the Vitruvian's contents to the orbiter. Instantly, the ship's systems falter, plunging into momentary darkness. Ordis, so often defined by his frantic, glitching demeanor, now speaks in an eerily emotionless tone. He responds that the missing blueprint data has been recovered and Excalibur Umbra being ready for construction. Upon completion, Excalibur Umbra awakens, enraged and uncontrollable. The Warframe lunges at the Tenno, forcing him to use transference. Within Umbra's mind, the operator relives his tragic final moments, a Dax soldier infected with the Infestation to be forcibly transformed into a Warframe by Ballas. Gravely ill, he lies helpless under Ballas's gaze, while his son, Izar, stands watch by his father's side, unaware of Ballas' doing. Their connection happens through a modified transference bolt. Ballas exerts his dominance with cruel precision, threatening to kill his son. The Tenno soon realizes the Vitruvian seals are locked deep within Umbra's mind, but before he can act further, the Warframe escapes. Tracking Umbra to Ceres, where he left a trail of dead Grineer, lashing out at everyone nearing him. The Tenno continues his journey through Umbra's mind with transference, unraveling more of his painful memories. The Warframe is consumed by grief, endlessly reliving the moment Ballas forced him to kill his own son. The agony fuels his relentless rampage. With each shared memory, the Tenno gradually pierces through Umbra's despair. Entering the depths of his mind, the operator offers comfort, bearing witness to Umbra's suffering and sharing his pain. Their minds entwine, Tenno and Warframe fused by sorrow. With that, the Tenno also unlocks the Vitruvian. It shows more of the Orokin's secrets he willfully gave up to ensure their destruction. He gives Harrow the location of the reservoir, but warns him how powerful the Tenno truly are. Together, driven by enacting revenge, they return to Earth to confront Ballas. The traitor stands guarded by sentient forces. A brutal battle ensues, culminating in Ballas's final command with his transference bolt. Umbra freezes, his body obeying Ballas's lingering control. In a moment of defiance, the Tenno steps out of Umbra and plunges a blade into Ballas's stomach. As Ballas crumbles, the Tenno demands answers. He demands the Lotus. Then she appears, not as the benevolent guide he once knew, but in her true sentient form. Natah. Her voice is resolute, her transformation complete. She has abandoned her role as Lotus completely. She states that she has returned to her true form of her own will. With the remaining sentient forces, Natah retreats, carrying Ballas away into the unknown. Back on the orbiter, in the quiet aftermath, the man in the wall materializes. He asks the operator if they are feeling better. The operator responds, still sharing Umbra's state of mind, "I killed him, Izar." After confirming that is how the operator remembers it, the man in the wall responds and vanishes. Excalibur Umbra now stands alongside the Tenno, bound by an unspoken understanding. Together, they continue their fight to whatever task they are called to. Shortly after defeating Ballas, the man in the wall materializes beside the Lotus's helmet, once again tempting the Tenno to touch it. Giving in, the Tenno is transported back to the place where Lotus was taken by Ballas. Following a shadow through Lotus's chamber and into a portal, he finds himself inside a prison, the very place where Ballas is being held. Despite suffering a fatal wound, Ballas has survived by becoming an amalgam, a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine under Natah's watchful eye. Here, Ballas secretly forges the Paracesis, a weapon designed specifically to destroy sentience. Concealing himself in void form and moving stealthily from cover to cover, the Tenno listens as Ballas curses his supposed savior for transforming him into such an abomination. His gaze avoids the sword, yet through his eyes, Natah observes everything. When the Tenno touches the Paracesis, he receives a vision of a war already in motion and acquires the blueprint for the legendary weapon. However, at that moment, Natah also becomes aware of the Tenno's presence through Ballas's sight. It appears that Ballas, despite his current state, intends to betray his supposed allies. To counter the Tenno's formidable powers, the Sentients seek to eliminate their greatest weakness, the Void. They compel Alad V to create amalgams by merging different races, while a towering bird-like sentient known as the Ropa Low List enforces strict obedience. In a twisted experiment, Alad V is forced to unleash his newly constructed amalgams against the Tenno, gathering valuable combat data in the process. The new units are highly formidable as they gained various powers and seemingly lost their weakness to void energy. Determined to disrupt their efforts, the Tenno sets his sights on the Ropa Low List. To his surprise, Alad V supports his mission, hoping to free himself from the looming threat of the Ropa Low List's oversight. The battle unfolds high above the volatile, gas-filled expanse of Jupiter, where the colossal sentient is ultimately defeated. This victory, however, prompts Natah to intervene. She declares that she is no longer under Orokin manipulation, that she has broken free from the forces that once turned her against her own kind. Now she is ready to resume her mission, ending the war and eradicating the Tenno. The loss of the Ropa Low List, it seems, was a calculated sacrifice for the Sentients, as they have successfully amassed critical data on their enemy. As tensions escalate into open conflict, Era, believed to be saved by Ballas during the Old War, has returned to the forefront of the Sentient Attack. He launches a fleet of Murex ships into the Vale Proxima space region. These massive vessels deploy chondrics, towering sentient constructs designed to unleash troops while simultaneously gathering intelligence for the impending war, linking them directly to the Murex network. In response, Little Duck, an operative of Solaris United and ally to the Quills, leads the operation to push back the invasion. Chaos erupts as a three-way battle ensues. The Grineer seek to harvest sentient resources, the Sentients fight to secure both territory and crucial data, and the Tenno aim to cripple the fleet before it gains a foothold. A Tenno ground squad intercepts a chondrix, extracting its data before it can be transmitted to the Murex. Meanwhile, another squad pilots a railjack, carving a path through enemy defenses to reach the Murex. There, they upload the stolen data, interwoven with a lethal kill code, directly into the Murex cognitive nexus. The effect is immediate. The Murex ships, living machines akin to the Sentients themselves, either flee or are obliterated, ensuring a decisive blow against Era's invasion. Aboard one of the railjacks, with the Paracesis now fully forged, the Tenno carves a path through the colossal sentient space carrier, cutting down enemies as he advances. As he prepares to depart, he stumbles upon a massive red crystal. Upon destroying it, his vision shifts, transporting him to the heart of the sentient mothership, where Natah converses with her brother, Era. Era stands beside Amalgam Ballas, his puppet, bound by a leash. He urges Natah to bring the war to its conclusion, reminding her that she carries the fire of their mother. Symbolically, the sentient mothership itself lies dormant, lifeless, a gargantuan husk awaiting reactivation, a task that only Natah can fulfill. Yet Era claims her memory remains fractured. He asserts that she wrongly recalls destroying him after adopting the guise of the Lotus, betraying her own kind in the process. But both Era and Ballas seek to manipulate her, weaving a false narrative that the Orokin reprogrammed her into the Lotus, twisting her against the Tenno who now wield her power. Conflicted and plagued by uncertainty, Natah hesitates. Era, impatient and determined, forcibly pushes her onto a strange device, ensnaring her within a containment field. Waves of energy pulse outward, forcefully ejecting the Tenno from his vision. In that moment, the mothership stirs, seemingly beginning its reactivation. Although previous sentient incursions have been repelled, they continue to evolve, adapting their strategies with newly designed units. Among them are the Orphics, an advanced iteration of the Chondrix, now deployed across the system. These formidable constructs wield specialized energy pulses capable of severing transference, completely cutting warframes off from their operators. Fortunately, the necromechs of Deimos remain immune to this attack, making them the only viable combatants against the growing sentient threat. As the Tenno fights back, Natah reveals her hand in the conflict. She was the one who taught the Orphics how to disable warframes. Even as the Tenno struggles to comprehend whether the Lotus is truly gone, a cryptic transmission reaches them. Hidden within its code is a shocking message: "I am dying." Although the Allied forces managed to hold off the sentient attacks thus far, the main fleet has not been deployed yet. Murex carriers continue their invasion, deploying forces onto every planet. What began as isolated skirmishes soon shifts into an all-out war, engulfing the entire system in chaos. Amid the destruction, Ballas and Era move forward, preparing to execute the next phase of their plan. The new war has begun. The Sol system plunges into chaos as a relentless fleet of Murex ships lays waste to every planet. On Earth, in the plains of Eidolon, the Grineer struggle against the overwhelming might of the sentients. Amid the carnage, a determined Grineer soldier, Carl 175, fights his way through the battlefield, armed with his assault rifle, machete, and incendiary grenades. His mission: destroy the Chondrix, which continues shooting down approaching aircraft. Under Vey Heck's supervision and lead, amidst the wreckage, Carl discovers a powerful bomb. His one chance to bring down the Chondrix. As the battle intensifies, a fellow squad is decimated. The massive Tusk Thumper, a formidable Grineer tank, is instantly destroyed. With no one left standing, Carl presses forward alone. Gripping a broken Warframes shotgun, he makes a desperate charge toward the Chondrix, initiating the bomb. But before he can complete his mission, Era intercepts him. With his innate sentient power to control smart machinery, Era halts the bomb's detonation and seemingly takes control of Carl's mind. In the Vale Proxima, a united Grineer and Corpus fleet wages war against a relentless Murex. Amid the chaos, Veso, a Corpus technician, is tasked by Alad V with re-establishing the ship's command overrides. However, as Veso pushes forward, he makes a chilling discovery. The sentients have seized control of their MOAS and machinery, turning Corpus technology against its own creators. Leading a small squad, Veso fights through collapsed corridors and waves of enemies, methodically clearing a path to his objective. Meanwhile, Alad V, ever opportunistic, insists on standing down fire control, seemingly in an attempt to appease the attackers. Before reaching the final override, Veso is confronted by a formidable enemy, the Jackal. The massive Corpus war machine, now influenced by the sentients, proves a brutal obstacle. With careful strategy and coordinated teamwork, Veso utilizes his companions effectively, overcoming the mechanical beast and pressing forward. At last, he reaches the final console. Alad V regains control, immediately ordering the crew to stand down, having brokered a deal to appease to the sentient. But Veso refuses to comply. In an act of defiance, he reactivates the heavy artillery, unleashing a devastating attack that annihilates both the sentient ship and his own, choosing destruction over submission. The Tenno joins the battle, piloting his railjack with Teshin by his side, their sights set on the commanding Murex. Before engaging, Teshin warns of the Orphix fields. He vows to dismantle them, forbidding the Tenno from advancing until the task is done. As waves of sentient fighter ships descend upon them, the Tenno holds the line, obliterating enemy forces while Teshin prepares to infiltrate. Using the railjack slingshot, Teshin launches himself into the heart of the Murex. With Ordis's assistance, they systematically destroy 3 Orphix field reactors, finally clearing the path for Warframes to enter the battlefield. Venturing deeper into the Murex, Teshin scouts ahead, only to be ambushed by Era and Ballas. Forced into submission, a mask veil is placed upon him, a dangerous device designed to cloud his mind and bring him under Ballas's control. Though Teshin manages to tear the veil away, his resistance is met with brutal force, and Error seemingly delivers the killing blow. The Tenno arrives too late. Before him stand Error and Ballas, their treachery fully realized, just as Natah's cryptic warning had foretold. Ballas, now in command of the Sentients, has twisted Natah into a tool for his own ambitions. With cruel intent, he reveals her, weak and fading, before draining her life essence with a kiss, leaving her to die. A portal opens by Ballas' control. Natah is pulled toward it, but the Tenno catches her, holding on desperately. With fading strength, she pleads to be let go. But before the Tenno can act, Ballas wields the paracesis. In one swift motion, he severs Natah's hand, then, unable to kill the Tenno outright, he drives the blade deep through his chest. As Teshin and the two are cast into the void portal, Ballas makes his final move, attempting to entrap them in an endless time loop. With no major threat left to challenge Ballas, the entire system falls under his iron rule. The sentient forces conquer and subjugate every planet, enslaving their inhabitants under the Nama faction. Bound by mask veils, the people are mind-controlled, reduced to mere tools for Ballas's dictatorship. Amidst this oppression, a lone drifter arrives on Earth, determined to raid a Nama encampment and liberate the veiled prisoners. Stealthily maneuvering through the stronghold, he frees several Ostron captives, only to be ambushed by an Archon. A monstrous fusion of sentient and Warframe, the Archon is powered by concentrated sentient energy, an Archon shard. Outmatched, the drifter barely escapes, reaching his ship just in time. Back in a safety, the drifter somehow manages to recover Natah from the time loop. Though she is barely alive, her body almost entirely missing. The life essence Ballas stole from her must be restored quickly, or she will vanish completely. As the drifter is revealed to be an older version of the Tenno, stripped of void powers, he sets out with Ordis to infiltrate a mask veil factory in the Orb Valleys. There, they steal a Nama ship, allowing them to move freely through the system. With Natah's condition rapidly deteriorating, the drifter embarks on a desperate journey to Uranus in search of her father, Harrow. Upon arrival, he is captured by the Stalker. Though still hostile, the two recognize the greater threat, and Harrow agrees to assist in their shared struggle. He explains that the Archon shards may hold the key to restoring Natah's strength, and grants the drifter a legendary sentient bow, Natah, capable of slaying the Archons. As the drifter prepares to depart, Error intercepts them, clashing with Harrow. His father counters, urging Error to abandon his misguided servitude. Error, in strong belief he is not being manipulated by Ballas, promises to find Natah, now aware of her survival. Determined, the drifter tracks down the first Archon, a serpent-like beast. In a fierce battle, wielding Natah, he slays the creature. Before it can resurrect, the Stalker tears the shard from its body and hands it to the drifter. With the first shard, Natah regains part of her form, but she is far from complete. Furious, she demands more. The second battle proves even deadlier as sentient forces intensify their resistance. After much struggle, the drifter retrieves a second shard, granting Natah enough strength to reclaim some of her power. Yet, she does not recognize the drifter as the true operator, his lack of void abilities distorting her mind. In a frenzied rage, she unleashes devastating sentient lasers. To protect the drifter, Ordis sacrifices his drone body, shielding him and shattering in the process. Enraged, Natah grips the drifter by the throat, choking him until he collapses. In his fading consciousness, a vision unfolds. The Zariman incident. He witnesses the pivotal moment when the Tenno, in desperation, strikes a deal with the Indifference. It is this agreement that grants the Tenno his void powers, his defense against the monstrous fate that befalls the adults. In doing so, the Tenno inadvertently transfers these abilities to the drifter. Snapping back to reality, the drifter harnesses his newfound void abilities, repelling Natah's attacks. In that instant, the Tenno replaces the drifter, who finds himself back on the Zariman. Natah finally sees the true operator, snapping out of her rage and departs, determined to confront Ballas and Error. It seems the man in the wall, intentionally or not, has ensured the Tenno's survival. Though the reason remains unknown, perhaps this intervention serves to remind him of upholding his part of the deal, whatever that may be. Ballas, sensing the Tenno's return, erupts in fury. He commands Era to recall the sentient fleet, preparing for Natah's arrival. His plan is clear. He will use her to eliminate the Tenno once and for all. Shortly after Natah's departure, the Zariman mysteriously reconnects with the current timeline. Whether this is the Drifter's doing, who now resides on it, or a consequence of the two versions of the Tenno being linked, remains uncertain. The operator sets out for the Zariman, which now remains half-anchored in a void portal. Here, the operator encounters the Drifter, giving him some explanations, but being extremely cryptic in the process. The Drifter is not merely an aged-up version of the Tenno, but rather a being from an entirely different reality. Unlike the operator, he was never saved from the Zariman 10-0, which only further shows the puzzling nature of the indifference. Yet certain questions remain unanswered. The older Tenno does not explain how he replaced the operator, nor how he managed to recover Natah. However, the paradox of them both now existing in the same reality dictates that only one of them can actively occupy regular space, and together they decide. The Drifter will be the one to end the war, while the operator presumably remains on the Zariman, though at all times available to switch places as needed. Leaving the Zariman, the Drifter, now possessing void powers, takes control of the Warframes. Determined, he follows Natah back to Cetus, ready for the final confrontation. In Cetus, the Tenno unmasks several veiled Ostrons, uncovering the full extent of Nama's devastation. The faction has ravaged the Unum's Orokin tower, extracting her temple kuva, an invaluable substance used to cure their void sickness. The Drifter frees Konzu from captivity. In assistance, Konzu grants him an airship to ascend to the Murex, still stationed atop the ruined Orokin tower. Natah, however, forbids the Drifter from following. She believes it is her own fight to kill Ballas, who is already en route to the sun aboard the mothership Pragaza. With Pragaza's immense power, Ballas seeks to absorb the sun's energy entirely. Determined to handle the battle alone, Natah attempts to stop the Drifter. She knocks him off the Murex before leaping toward Pragaza. In response, Cephalon Psi arrives with the railjack, and they immediately give chase. As they close in on the burning star, the sun's heat waves begin to overwhelm the railjack. Taking cover behind debris from the shattered sentient fleet, they maneuver close enough to board the mothership. Before the Drifter can arrive, Natah crashes the Murex directly into Pragaza, causing severe damage. An Orphix field is deployed, preventing Warframes from entering. Forced to adapt, the Drifter boards Pragaza in his necromech. Unexpectedly, Era appears. He admits his mistake. Ballas has deceived him, and now he seeks to save Natah before it's too late. Together, they resolve to kill the third Archon, the final step in fully restoring Natah. Yet Pragaza is rapidly destabilizing from the impact of the Murex. As they push forward, the ceiling collapses, nearly burying them. In a last act of defiance, Era holds back the wreckage just long enough for the Drifter to escape before succumbing to the falling debris. With the Orphix generators disabled by destroying its generators, the Warframe regains its functionality. The Tenno seizes the opportunity, destroying the final Archon and claiming its shard, the key to completing Natah's restoration. Moments after Natah arrives, the Tenno reaches Ballas's throne room for a final confrontation. As the ship crumbles and the sun is drained of its energy to restore Pragaza, Ballas opens a massive void portal. His plan is clear. He intends to escape to the Tau system, leaving the Origin system in ruin. Ballas turns his wrath on Natah, attacking her with relentless force. But before he can finish her, the Tenno intervenes, saving her from the onslaught. In the struggle, the Tenno is thrown to the ground, losing the Archon shard. Seizing the opportunity, Ballas absorbs it, gaining newfound power, enough to take full control on Natah. With her will subverted, Ballas commands Natah to turn against the Drifter. However, the Drifter fights back, deflecting her attacks toward Nama control discs. Each shattered disc weakens Ballas's influence over her. When the last disc falls, Natah breaks free, launching an assault on Ballas. But he is still too powerful. In a ruthless move, he seizes the Tenno's paracesis and drives it through Natah's heart. Seconds before decapitating her, the Drifter forces a mask veil onto Ballas, immediately trapping him in a trance. Now helpless, Ballas succumbs to illusion. Seeing the true Margulis alive once more, she beckons him, pleading for his affection. Bewitched, he kisses her, only for Natah to drain his life essence and the Archon energy. Empowered, she rises in her new form, the Radiant Lotus. Ballas is finally dead, yet the Void Portal remains unchecked, reaching critical mass as it expands uncontrollably. With her newfound strength, Lotus struggles to close it. Then, from the depths of the portal, the man in the wall emerges, an immeasurable, towering entity, dwarfing even the sentient mothership. This impossible being seems unfazed by the sun's solar flares or the Lotus' new powers. It speaks in its eerie void tongue, teasing and laughing in distorted mimicry of the Tenno. Before the portal collapses, it lunges toward Lotus, then vanishes completely. Lotus collapses, weakened but alive. The Drifter rushes to her aid, carrying her back to their base. When she awakens, she denies having seen anything emerge from the portal. Despite Ballas's death, the Nama threat persists. Recognizing the ongoing danger, Lotus resumes her role as the Tenno's guide, vowing to protect the Origin system. Meanwhile, the war's aftermath leaves the major factions fractured. Their alliances have crumbled, and each faction struggles to recover from devastating losses. Ballas, now a martyr to Nama fanatics, fuels the resurgence of their forces. Error has been lost, falling under the control of the Archon leader, Pazul. Once a peacekeeper in the Tau system, Pazul now acts as a parasite, suppressing Error's mind and bending him to his will. As Pazul rebuilds his Archon fleet, the Tenno fights tirelessly to prevent him from amassing unchecked power. With Lotus stationed on Lua, guiding the resistance, both the Drifter and the Tenno work to unravel their paradoxical nature, seeking answers to their link with the Void. Before suddenly emerging in place of the young Tenno from the original timeline during the New War, the Drifter remained trapped in an eternal time loop within the void of a fractured reality. Barely remembering his own name and stripped of all emotion, he wandered the floating islands of Duviri, a world shaped by his thoughts. Inspired by the storybook written by Albrecht Entrati, as breathtaking as it was perilous, Duviri was adorned with colossal statues and grand cities inhabited by people, wildlife, and peculiar plants, drifting amidst an endless sea of clouds. In the distance, the Zariman loomed impossibly large, a decayed remnant of its former glory, ravaged by the void. The man in the wall had already begun tearing away pieces of the islands. Even Albrecht had once set foot in this realm, as documented in his personal journal. Before Duviri became cruel and twisted, it had been a vast playground for a lost Tenno of the Zariman, one who had never been saved by the man in the wall's bargain and thus never received its powers. Instead, the Tenno remained trapped in the void, a space infinitely malleable by thoughts and emotions. In his solitude, he conjured a living world filled with companions, among them Dominus Thrax, the ruler of Duviri. Once the Drifter's closest friend, Dominus had since become an unpredictable and ruthless sovereign, wielding the power to reset the realm's time by a single day. He used this ability to repeatedly punish the Drifter, executing him whenever he attempted to escape, having long since outgrown the fabricated story that kept him imprisoned. On the eve of yet another execution, the Drifter was pierced by a ghostly version of the paracesis, just as the Tenno had been before. In that moment, the severed hand of Natah, cut off by Ballas, crashed onto Duviri. It bound itself to the Drifter, freeing him from his captors and granting him strange new abilities. Armed with the executioner's pistol, he followed the hand's guidance through harrowing encounters with void-twisted skeletal Dax soldiers and a terrifying Oroworm, a colossal biomechanical serpent of Orokin design. With the aid of a flying steed, the Drifter reached a portal leading to a hidden cave, safely beyond Dominus's gaze. Within, he discovered 3 Warframes, alongside weapons and tools prepared for battle. An aged Teshin appeared, revealing that they had crossed paths countless times before, trapped in an endless cycle. He urged the Drifter to break free of his time prison. Whether the Void had resurrected Teshin or if this was merely another version of him remained unclear. Though Teshin insisted he wield a Warframe, the Drifter refused and instead took up Teshin's swords. As the Drifter departed for the mainland, Dominus, now consumed with rage, unleashed another Orowyrm. Though the Drifter fell in battle, the time loop reset, returning him to the cave once more. This time, he was persuaded to use a Warframe, harnessing the power of Natah's hand to do so. He ventured back into Duviri, slowly learning the land and undertaking various tasks for Teshin, helping the common folk and battling the corrupted Dax. In time, he acquired a piece of a figurine. As he examined it, fragmented memories surfaced. Teshin revealed that these belonged to Dominus himself, perhaps another lost Tenno from the Zariman. Gathering more pieces granted deeper insight into Duviri's origins. Before long, Teshin was captured by Dax soldiers at Dominus's command. A Dax gladius, an impostor, was sent in his stead. The Drifter gave chase, but he arrived too late. Teshin was executed. Overcome with fury and raw emotion, the Drifter seized control of an Orowyrm with the powers of Lotus's hand and laid waste to Dominus Thrax's towering stronghold. As the building crumbled, Dominus tumbled from his throne, dropping the final piece of the figurine. Connecting it, he remembers how he had created Duviri, granting him the powers to shape it again. With Dominus Thrax now reduced to a fearful, trembling child, the Drifter cast him aside and took the throne, wielding the power to reset the day himself. In doing so, he resurrected Teshin but restored Dominus's reign over Duviri. With newfound control over the realm, the Drifter gained the choice to finally leave. Teshin explained that the Warframes arrived in Duviri through the efforts of the Tenno from beyond its void prison. In gratitude, the Drifter was encouraged to aid them in return. Beyond Teshin's cave lay a door, one that connected Duviri to the Zariman. Through it, the Drifter had entered the original timeline, stepping back into the regular space of the Sol system sometime during the events of the New War. Drifting in the outer Sol system, the recently resurfaced Zariman beckons attention. A haunting song emanates from the colossal vessel, luring the Corpus and Grineer who seek to exploit its hidden artifacts. At the same time, the Lotus calls upon the Tenno to reclaim their rightful home. Upon arrival, the Tenno quickly recognizes the extent of the void corruption infesting the Zariman. The eerie melody drowns out his connection to the Lotus, severing their guidance. While the Grineer and Corpus scour the wreckage for relics of power, an unknown entity emerges, the undeniable source of the song. Towering above them, the being appears entirely composed of corrupted void energy. In an instant, it attacks, overpowering the Tenno and knocking them unconscious. Moments later, the Tenno awakens in a secure chamber, greeted by the Holdfasts, the last surviving crew of the Zariman. Their forms are ghost-like, brought back from death through the Void's enigmatic properties. They reveal that the creature is a Void Angel, a former crew member who succumbed to the Void Song, another terrifying manifestation. To preserve what remains of the ship, the Holdfasts request the Tenno's aid in purging exilizers of volatile Void energy, devices vital to maintaining what little stability the Zariman still has. After the task is completed, Quinn, the leader of the Holdfasts, warns that the song is growing stronger. As the corruption spreads, he fears they too will eventually succumb, transforming into Void Angels themselves. As the Tenno assists the Holdfasts, they receive an urgent call to defend the Zariman's reliquary drive, its core mechanism, now under siege by the Grineer. Their reckless interference accelerates the corruption, further attracting Void Angels. Amid the battle, Quinn speaks of the Zariman's past, a beacon of hope once meant to carry humanity to a brighter future. Moved by this, the Tenno vows to protect the ship, their lost home should the Holdfasts fail to survive the conflict. After repelling the assault, the Void Angel Kira emerges, her form radiating raw power. She proves a formidable adversary capable of forcing the Tenno out of their Warframe entirely. Injured but determined, the Tenno retaliates, dealing enough damage to force Kira to retreat into her personal pocket realm, a distorted domain shaped by the Void. Within this realm, the Tenno dismantles Kira's defenses before ejecting back into normal space, allowing them to deliver the final blow. Though victorious, Quinn grimly announces that their time has run out. Unable to resist the Void's pull any longer, he and the Holdfasts prepare for the inevitable, asking only to be remembered. As the song fades, the Lotus re-establishes her connection, learning of the Tenno's struggle within the Zariman. Yet, in a surprising twist, the Holdfasts survive. Having once been tethered to the reliquary drive, they are now linked instead to the Tenno's own radiant void energy. Though freed from corruption, danger remains. The Void Angels, along with the remnants of the Grineer Corpus and various void manifestations, continue to threaten the Zariman. The fight to protect the ship is far from over. To honor Kira, the Tenno and the Holdfasts construct a memorial in her name, vowing to defend the Zariman from future incursions. At the end of the new war, Ballas unleashed vast amounts of void energy, inadvertently strengthening the man in the wall's influence over regular space. With the sentient threat now largely contained, an entirely new threat emerges. Cephalon Lloyd summons the Tenno back to the Necrolysk on Deimos, revealing a long-buried precept within his mind. With its activation, a previously inaccessible section of the station is unveiled, as a cosmic clock collapses to reveal the entrance. Beyond it lies a vast underground complex, Albrecht's laboratories, where towering humanoid vessels stand in eerie silence. As the Tenno ventures deeper, their mission becomes clear: to awaken the sleeper. Along the way, they recover a grimoire, an ancient book capable of channeling mysterious void energies into devastating projectiles. Suddenly, the path is interrupted by a chilling presence. The man in the wall appears in the form of the operator, staring unmoving at the wall. As they pass the figure, the walls violently tear open, unveiling a nightmarish expanse. From this abyss, a new enemy emerges, the Murmur. The Murmur are horrifying extensions of the man in the wall, composed of shifting geometric rock formations with countless hands, feet, and eyes. Their most terrifying trait is their ability to merge, forming colossal, more complex versions of themselves. Each fusion enhances their physical strength, intelligence, and grants them entirely new abilities. Boundless in their destructive potential, these creatures seem to have no limit to the horrors they can become. From within the walls of the laboratory, the endless bounds of the Murmur's rocky, sand-swept depths extend beyond the horizon. The void has breached into the laboratories and cannot be allowed to reach further. Pressing forward, the Tenno faces the fragmented tide, an exceptionally powerful Murmur variant. After an intense battle, they discover a cryopod, from which the faint sound of a pager emanates. Inside, the real Lloyd awakens. Together, they return to the main laboratories, the Sanctum Anatomica, safeguarded by ancient wards and barriers. While Lloyd reactivates the station's old equipment, the Tenno encounters the Caviar, three creatures Albrecht once experimented on. Fibonacci the fish, Tagfair the deer-like being, and Bird 3, a tropical avian hybrid. They attempt to communicate in Void tongue, though their words remain incomprehensible. Lloyd sends the Tenno deeper into the laboratories to recover vital machinery, a mission critical to preventing further catastrophe. With the retrieved components, an old terminal flickers to life, transmitting a recorded message from Albrecht himself. In the recording, he explains the truth behind his work. Lloyd was tasked with sending him back in time in an effort to distract the man in the wall, drawing its attention away from the present. Embedded within the transmission, the Tenno uncovers the blueprint for a Yahoo gargoyle, an intricate statue combining all three Caviar. When the time is right, they are instructed to seek Albrecht in the year 1999. As the statue is completed and activated, the Tenno gains the ability to comprehend Void tongue, revealing that the Caviar are highly intelligent, emotional beings. Fibonacci explains that to complete the Kalamos sequence, the missing page of the grimoire must be found. With his assistance, the Tenno ventures deeper into the ruins, eventually locating the final page. Before they can escape, the Murmur launch an all-out assault on the Sanctum Anatomica. As the battle intensifies, the Tenno connects the completed grimoire to the Jahu gargoyle, granting them the power to face the newly formed Fragmented One, an even more dangerous Murmur fusion. Within the lost page, a hidden revelation emerges. Albrecht's heartfelt words of admiration for Lloyd, his unspoken love. After defeating the Fragmented One, a void-possessed vessel awakens, forcefully expelling the Tenno from his warframe. In a desperate moment, just before being crushed, they manage to transfer into a second vessel, one that mirrors the corrupted entity. Rather than attacking, the Tenno reaches out, forging an emotional connection, an act of compassion that pacifies the void-possessed being. Even in the abyss of the void, it seems emotion and love holds power. The vessels freeze in place. The Murmur stop their attack, and the sanctum seems to be secure again. Lloyd, witnessing this extraordinary event, is now more determined than ever to complete the sequence. Though the Murmur's greatest assault has been repelled, their threat never ceases. Together, Lloyd and the Caviar stand guard over the laboratories, preparing for the final step, sending the Tenno after Albrecht, waiting for him in the past. Before vanishing, the man in the wall appears far outside the laboratories with the void version of Albrecht. He picks a lotus flower's petals, setting his sight on the Tenno's guide. He mentions the betrayal by the Tenno, not upholding their end of the deal before crushing the flower in his hand. With the Murmur's primary assault on the Sanctum Anatomica repelled, deeper incursions into the voidscape and concealed safes are now underway. Progress toward reaching Albrecht in the past steadily advances. Beyond the frozen vessels, the void abyss stretches endlessly, its landscape littered with immeasurable gaping mouths. Amidst the silence, the Lotus contemplates the rhythmic chime of a pager, waiting for the Tenno's arrival. When they appear, both the Drifter and the Operator standing before her, she confesses that the man in the wall's presence is growing stronger, pulling her ever closer. She urges the Drifter to answer the pager's call, which abruptly transports him to an abandoned mall. There he encounters Albrecht's Kavat, Kalimos, who guides him to another ringing pager. Upon answering it, the Drifter is drawn back to the Lotus, who explains that his brief journey has forged a crucial link to the past. Now, they must find Albrecht before the man in the wall does. Before the Drifter can embark on his journey to the past, he must first aid the Stalker. Deep within his concealed lair on Uranus, the Stalker harbors a secret, one so deeply guarded that he refuses to share it, even in dire need. Harrow berates him for hiding Jade, a warframe on the brink of death. Before the Old War, Jade was the Stalker's wife. While he is likely a human permanently linked to a warframe through transference, Jade's fate was far crueler. She was forcibly transformed into a warframe by the Orokin as punishment, similar to Umbra, likely for the forbidden relationship she shared with the Stalker. During the collapse of the Orokin Empire, the Stalker served as a low guardian. While Jade, defying her circumstances, protected him, she wields the Jade Light, a formidable form of energy capable of disintegrating its target in an instant. The Orokin kept her in stasis, only releasing her when she was needed to enact executions for those deemed deserving. Yet despite her lethal power, she also possessed the ability to heal, enveloping others in protective energy. In the lair, she calls out the Stalker's true name, Soren, compelling him to check on her worsening condition. No clear cause is visible, but something is draining her very life essence. Harrow urges him to seek help from the Tenno, who possess an intrinsic understanding of the nature of warframes. But Soren refuses. Instead, he infiltrates a Corpus ship, stealing bioplasma in a desperate attempt to save her, inadvertently drawing the Corpus's attention to himself, namely that of Captain Zeto. When he administers the bioplasma, Jade writhes in pain, his efforts only worsening her condition. Realizing Harrow was right, Soren seeks out the Tenno, who advise him to use cortichrome, the base material of warframes. Together, they hunt a juggernaut, a powerful infested creature, to harvest the substance. However, the Corpus remain hot on his trail, ambushing him upon his return to the lair. Though Soren swiftly dispatches the crew and rushes back to Jade's side. The Operator links with her, sensing she is nearly out of time. In that moment, Jade reveals something shocking. She is pregnant, likely since she was turned into a warframe, and the infant is the source of her dwindling energy. They apply the cortichrome, but it is too late. As Soren grows increasingly desperate, Jade reaches for his hand. In their final embrace, she disintegrates into a radiant green wave of energy, leaving behind their newborn son. The child inherits Jade's light, a portion of which transfers to Soren, enveloping him in her luminous life force. But the Corpus reinforcements arrive, led by Captain Zito. She believes to have made a significant discovery and alarms Parvos Granum's right hand herself, Vala Glarios, to witness the ensuing battle. Cradling his son, now infused with the Jade light, Soren fights his way to the surface. Upon breaching the depths of the ocean, he encounters an elite squad of Corpus crewmen. They open fire, barely held at bay by Soren's fading strength. Yet when Zito hears the faint cries of the infant, she orders a ceasefire. Moved by the impossible sight before her, she allows Soren to pass unchallenged. He does not retaliate. Carrying his son, he boards his ship, leaving behind the lair, now illuminated by Jade's essence in the form of tiny motes. As Harrow entrusts the synthesized blueprint of Jade's warframe to the operator, he solemnly remarks that Jade would have wanted this. And so Soren vanishes into the unknown. The Corpus breach the lair and harvest the traces of the Jade light, empowering their Eximus units with its properties. The time has come for the Drifter to leap back in time, tracing the steps of Albrecht Entrati before the man in the wall can reach him. Lloyd's preparations are complete, ensuring stable time travel via the vessels and the linked pager through their void connection. Their destination, Hulvania, 1999, where Albrecht's influence has already set deep roots. In 997, the government delved into genetic engineering, primarily for weapon development. But their secret cloning project had another purpose: revolutionizing the entertainment industry through the world-famous boy band Online. The plan, however, spiraled into catastrophe. The experiments birthed an outbreak, the precursor to the Infestation, Techrote. Unlike its future counterpart, which initially thrived on organic matter, Techrote had an affinity for machines. It consumed code, corrupted software, and twisted technology to its will, though its ability to infect flesh was weaker. It festered underground, slowly infesting the still inhabited city from within. In response, the government deployed the Scaldra, a ruthless military force specializing in Techrote extermination. Armed with highly corrosive Cephalon, they purged the streets, forcing the infection underground. Leading the charge was Major Nessie Rusalka, who imposed martial law and mass quarantines. Albrecht arrived in Hulvania in 1998 under the alias Dr. Friday. His supposed miracle drug offered temporary relief, but also turned recipients into silent carriers, accelerating the virus's spread. As mutations strengthened Techrote beyond control, Albrecht introduced the Helminth virus. Few survived the treatment, but those who did became proto-frames, hybrids wielding warframe-like abilities yet retaining their minds. These survivors, now known as the Hex, blamed Albrecht for the devastation and for their transformation into part-mutated beings. They also uncovered Scaldra's dark dealings, deploying Techrote as a tool to clear settlements, masquerading as saviors. With Hulvania completely locked down, a three-way war raged between the Scaldra, Techrote, and Proto-frames. Amidst the chaos, their mission was clear: find Albrecht. On December 31, 1999, the city's nuclear reactor erupted. Yet with Albrecht's interference and the Drifter's arrival, time rewound by 24 hours. Arthur James Nightingale, leader of the Hex, received Albrecht's cryptic invitation on a mall computer. Joined by Amir, Aoi, Quincy, Letitia, and his sister Eleanor, the group set out on their atomocycles to track him down. Rusalka ambushed Arthur on the streets. Though she retreated, Arthur easily dispatched Scaldra forces. The battle intensified when an Cephalon tank rolled in, transforming the fight into a brutal struggle. Destroying it, he watched the ground collapse, revealing Techrote-infested wreckage. Eleanor's telepathy guided him deeper toward Albrecht's location. In the infested sewers, a giant maw regurgitated a fully formed Excalibur warframe, locking Arthur into a violent clash. The Drifter had been traveling through this warframe itself, attempting to infiltrate Arthur's mind. Arthur rejected the intrusion, forcing the Drifter out before stabbing his hand and dragging him into the mall. 20 hours before the nuclear disaster, Skaldra captured Albrecht, subjecting him to interrogation by Rusalka and her lieutenant, Viktor Vodianoy. It was then revealed Rusalka was possessed by the man in the wall, shifting forms to torment him. Albrecht mentioned the Indifference's one vulnerability: love. In the mall, the Hex interrogated the Drifter, but ultimately gave him a chance to prove his worth. Together, they plotted Albrecht's rescue after Skaldra announced his capture. Battling their way through enemies, the Drifter arrived at the holding cell, only to be greeted by the eerie grin of the Indifference before it vanished. Back at the mall, Kalemos led the Drifter to a back room, revealing a fully stocked arsenal reminiscent of the future. On a nearby computer, he uncovered a recorded message from Albrecht. The truth became clear. They were both trapped in a warped time loop. To break free and hold back the invading murmur, they needed an immense energy surge, the nuclear explosion itself. Out on the streets, Amir and Aoi located Albrecht held in a convoy. The Drifter rushed in to intervene, obliterating Skaldra forces. In the chaos, Rusalka crashed her truck, injuring herself but leaving Albrecht unharmed. He explained that in this loop, the man in the wall continually possesses Rusalka. To sever its grip, she had to die. The Drifter refused. Furious, Albrecht lashed out, until the Indifference suddenly recovered. Its power surged, whisking both Albrecht and the Drifter away. The Drifter awakes in a vision of the Zariman, where the Indifference reveals a terrifying prophecy. Every member of the Hex was doomed to die. Moments later, returning to the mall, the Drifter shared Albrecht's warning with the Hex. Determined to prevent the explosion, they set out. And then, just as predicted, the slaughter unfolded. Eleanor, alongside Letitia, manipulated the Techrote to divert Skaldra's forces, but fell to the lure of the Infestation's control, attacking Letitia as one of the infected. Amir, Arthur, and Aoi held the line while Quincy provided sniper support, until an enemy tank spotted him and obliterated him. At the nuclear facility, Amir struggled to hack the reactor, loosening the locks Aoi desperately secured with her telekinetic abilities. She perished, overwhelmed by exertion. Arthur, battling a monstrous Techrote deep within the core, watched Entrati appear, executing Amir before he himself succumbed to fatal radiation exposure. The Drifter confronted Entrati, pleading that they could save them. Albrecht explains that he can only save them if he truly knows and understands them. He declares his departure for the Tau system and shoots the Drifter before vanishing. Before collapsing, the Drifter harnessed Duviri's power, resetting the time loop once more. Inside the loop, Lloyd made contact. Duviri's reset had extended the loop to a full year. This granted the Drifter precious time to forge deeper bonds with the Hex. Strengthening their resolve, mastering their abilities, and fortifying their mission, they worked tirelessly to prevent the nuclear catastrophe. As the cycle continues, the Hex use their knowledge to fight back against the outbreak and protect Hulvania's remaining civilians. The Drifter gained full control over his place in time, entering and exiting the loop freely. With Albrecht's grand scheme crumbling, as the Indifference had even followed him back in time, he fled into the unknown. Meanwhile, Rusalka, still remains at large. Yet amidst the ongoing battle, new proto-frames joined the Hex, steadily transforming their faction into a safe haven for those trapped in the war. After the Indifference terrorized Duviri, every action thus far seems to lead us to the sentient homeworld, to the Tau system. Dear listener, this marks the end. Until further notable escalations are recorded for me to process, feel free to re-listen to previous segments. Farewell and good luck on the journey ahead.
All those possibilities. And yet, the story only ends one way.